Okay, and now to lead it off, we have a special guest, Jeff Diedrich. No more special than David and Grace, sorry Jeff, but anyway. Jeff is from Michigan, and I've known Jeff for a few years now. We actually met and had some conversations when we were both facilitators at the Harvard UDL Institute. And in a way, I guess I will say that I found kind of a kindred spirit in the journey of UDL. So I truly enjoy Jeff. I truly enjoy his work. I think he's going to challenge us in the good way of being challenged this morning, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what's happening in his state and how they're working at their UDL implementation. Shall I use that word? Anyway, so I'm going to let Jeff tell you a little bit more about him, and you're going to have a treat this morning. So on we go. Thanks.
All right, so I hit this button over here. Okay. Hey, I'm on. All right. Thank you, Kathy. It's great to be here. Very impressed yesterday with everything that I heard, and also struck by the similarities about what's going on here and what's going on in the United States. So, as Kathy said, I'm from Michigan, and I direct a statewide project called Michigan's Integrated Technology Supports. It's funded through our Office of Special Education, and we focus on assistive technology, accessible instructional materials, and universal design for learning. And my trip out here, some of you have heard, involved a motorcycle. So it was a great trip out. There's my route. Longer than I thought, but very fast. So I'm from Michigan, and we are an automotive state, and we drive fast, but not as fast as you guys. So making it across Saskatchewan was very, very quick. And then I get here, and Kathy tells me that I'm lucky I didn't get arrested in Saskatchewan. So I made it, and tomorrow, where am I going? Yeah, Jasper. I heard Banff, Jasper. I'm heading west further, and I'm going over to Jasper and then down to Banff and then home. I did offer to have David fly into Michigan from Boston and hop on the back of the bike, but for whatever reason, he wasn't real keen on that idea. So we've been wrestling with UDL for probably the last 4 or 5 years. And about 2.5 years ago, we stepped back from a pilot that we had started where we focused. I had this crazy thought in my head that it's all about technology. It's synonymous with technology. If we get our technology folks on board, we can hand this thing over to them and they can take it. And then we scratched the surface of what UDL meant. And we found, at least I felt, that it's much more of a pedagogical framework than it is about technology. And so we thought, oh, boy, did we really mess up. So we stepped back from that, and we recruited a small number of districts we have general education teachers and we have special education teachers. We recruited general education teachers to participate in this, and we told them very explicitly, you are guinea pigs. We don't have the answers for you. And we're going to figure it out together. We're going to define UDL in a practical way, but we're going to do it together. I work at the state level. I know that top-down doesn't work. They're working in the trenches, and bottom-up alone doesn't work. So, and we had David in, we had the folks from CAST in, Grace was in. And again, we said, CAST isn't here to provide you all the answers. We're not here to provide you all the answers. We're going to co-develop the answers. And we wanted to create a very replicable model. And the economy in Michigan is not so good. And so we can't make it contingent upon having a very robust technology environment. So we have to make it realistic and practical. So what did we do? We had lots and lots of dialogue with these teachers. And we we spent a ton of time on the principles and looking in depth at what that meant and focusing on again, the pedagogical aspects of instruction and how it aligned and supported the framework of universal design for learning. That frustrated many of our teachers because they came in and you know, the name of my grant is Michigan's Integrated Technology Supports. They wanted tools. And I am mean, and so I said, no, I'm not going to give you tools. And they weren't terribly happy about that for quite a while, but we had very good dialogue, and it got to a point where they realized that technology was not the answer in and of itself, and they started to realize, okay, I can use this technology, but I'm going to use it specifically for this. What we had done before is we had kind of front-loaded some technology into classrooms and thought that would change the world. We found that that was not the case. So again, emphasized pedagogy, dug into the principles, and slowly and purposefully introduced technology. And then we identified critical elements of UDL. What we felt, and the teachers again were very involved in this, what we felt had to be there in order to be aligned with the framework of UDL. UDL in the States has become somewhat of a buzzword. So I often say UDL is everywhere and nowhere. I don't think a lot of what's going on that's being called UDL aligns with the vision that David set out years and years ago. I think some of it is no more than I have an interactive whiteboard in my classroom, I'm doing UDL. Some of it is good tech integration, but it doesn't go beyond that. So we wanted to identify critical elements that we knew had to be there. And I think most importantly, we respected one another's opinions. We had disagreements, we still have disagreements. We're still meeting with these pilot groups, and now we're getting ready to expand. We learned a lot. We learned a lot through these 2.5 years. We learned a lot as a state grant, and the teachers learned a lot, and we did see, our goal was to see a paradigm shift in the way they approached education, instruction, and we realized that in most cases with the teachers. How many of you are familiar with the Food Network's Chopped? Raise your hands. A few. All right, so Chopped, and I may have this slightly wrong because I don't watch it a lot, but my wife does. And Chopped, it's a food program where they bring on 3 people and they have a competition to see who can make the best meal. And when they do that, there are mandatory ingredients that have to be included in the meal. If they're not there, then it's likely they're going to get chopped. And the ingredients are crazy most of the time. So they may have watermelon, sardines, and pepper jack cheese. I got to make a meal out of that. So those are the mandatory ingredients, and if those are not on the plate in some way, shape, or form, hopefully somehow creatively yet still edible, then you're not meeting the requirements. But they have access to a pantry that has a lot of additional options that can complement and help you complete the dish to make something edible. So the end result could be this. It could be this. So you have the core ingredients in both of these dishes, I think, because I actually found these on Google Docs and I have no idea if they have sardines, watermelon, but we're going to pretend. And then David, the third contestant, said, screw it. And he just made a hamburger.
Thank God.
So who's going to get chopped? My point here is, with UDL and our critical elements, we think those are mandatory ingredients to alignment with the framework. And if teachers aren't using all of those mandatory ingredients, then they aren't aligned with the framework, and they should be chopped. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I told you he was going to.
So we were, when we first started the dialogue around what this all meant, And they were expecting, even though we told them very explicitly that they were guinea pigs and we didn't have all the answers, I think in the back of their minds they thought, they're holding back on us. They're going to tell us at some point. And we didn't. And so I think they wanted to chop me on several occasions. But we made it through, and we, out at the end of this, you'll see some teacher comments about the process thus far. So our critical elements that we developed, they're not earth-shattering. You'll see strong alignment with the principles that Cass developed. And in fact, we had these elements reviewed by David and Grace. So if we're in conflict, then it's all their fault, I think. So we have, my apologies if you can't see that well, the puzzle pieces are flexible methods and materials, timely progress monitoring, inclusive intentional planning, and clear goals. Those are what we determine are the mandatory ingredients for UDL. And again, what we said is, if you are providing flexible methods and materials, but that's all you're doing, that's probably an improvement over what you were doing, but it's still not aligned with the framework of UDL, in our opinion. Has to have all four of the ingredients considered. Now, you're not going to need all of those every single lesson you do, but there should minimally be some consideration over that. So what are we talking about when we say clear goals? I think it's fairly explanatory, self-explanatory, but clear understanding. The teachers have to have a clear understanding of the goals of the lesson and what the expectations are from the students. And more importantly, the students should know. Grace mentioned yesterday that there's a school that she's worked with where every student in the class knows the goals and can state the goals or indicate the goals in some way, express what the expectations are. And that's, I think, essential. Skip Stahl from CAST uses the analogy of if we don't provide clear expectations that the students know and can express themselves, then it's like bowling with the curtain in front of the pins and expecting a strike and a spare. They don't know what they're aiming for. And yet we still expect that strike, or minimally we expect them to pick up the spare and learn. So that's, I think that's essential for the framework. The other one, inclusive intentional planning, that's simply recognizing the differences in the students and planning accordingly. It's been said oftentimes that UDL is really just good teaching. I don't think it is. I think it's more than that. If it were good teaching, then we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't need to be here. I think UDL represents a real visionary shift in education that if we can realize it, we're going to see significant change in education. We want to address the demands of the curriculum and maintain rigor. As David said yesterday, maintaining rigor is very essential to the framework of UDL. Next one, flexible methods and materials. Talked a lot about that yesterday. How you present, how you allow students to demonstrate their knowledge. And our teachers have internalized this very well and given opportunities for the students to show what they know in a variety of ways. And before that, many of the students were unsuccessful, and the teachers really didn't understand what they knew. And then timely progress monitoring. Grace just talked about formative assessment. That's essentially what we're talking about here. We have to have formative and summative assessments that are going to inform us and allow us to make the necessary changes and embed the supports that are necessary in subsequent lessons. So those are the critical elements that we've defined. We've refined them 3 times. We're in the process of looking at them again. And again, I want to reiterate that must be evidence that all 4 critical elements were considered in order to be aligned with the framework of UDL. So again, you could be doing 3 of the 4. We're still going to be mean and say, got to consider that 4th one. Again, because we want to see the shift. We want to see what's going to happen when all 4 of those things are considered. So what's the role of technology? Big question. I heard that question yesterday here. I hear it quite a bit in the States. Again, my opinion is it's something in the pantry that we go to make a really good dish. I firmly believe that technology does have a significant role in achieving the vision of UDL, but in and of itself is insufficient to do that. I was recently at a national meeting for state educational technology directors, and Tom Carroll from the National Commission on Teaching and America's Future was there as a speaker, and he said, and this is an organization that's really promotes the use of technology and 21st century skills. He said back in 1998, when technology first became, kind of got its legs under it, if you will, he predicted that by 2010, schools will look very different as a result of technology. Technology will change schools. It didn't. Those are his words. It didn't. So we have to. And you know, we have to, and we can, through using technology, but using it in a different way than just, I'm going to take and embed this, integrate this technology into the classroom. And I think UDL provides a fantastic framework to maximize the potential of some of the technology that's out there. So he also talked about Education 1.0. That's the learning to know model, the artisan practice, stand in front of a class. It's not lost on me that the name of this place, the Professional Development Center, is Tell Us. So, and a lot of what we are doing with technology is actually buttressing that 1.0 model. And I see that a fair amount in the districts that I go into throughout Michigan. I got a whiteboard, an interactive whiteboard, but there's not a whole lot of interactivity going on there. The potential is not realized with what technology is there. So I think we need to look at that. And then there's Education 2.0, learning to do. And how do I solve problems? How do I work with people? And teachers teaching and learning. This is, they're expert learners. David and Grace both talked about creating expert learners with students. This model promotes expert learners not only for students, but also for teachers. And students learn continuous learning as a result. They see that teacher is always learning, and they internalize that, and they know that that's their responsibility as well. So again, promoting that expert learner model. I don't know if either of these models will ultimately get us where we need to be. What do you guys think? Any thoughts? My hunch is that there's probably going to be something else that comes along. I think we need to change the way our teacher preparation universities train future teachers, which is, I find that it's tough to change K-12, but that's nothing compared to influencing change at the university level. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Again, I'm going to just play. Any questions before I'm just going to play some feedback from our teachers who have been involved in the pilot, and I'm just going to have you guys read it. I'm not going to read it to you, but any questions before I click this, because it's going to auto-play. All right. Music for David. I embedded that last night. It's when they wanted to kill me. So these schools, 2 rural and 1 suburban, and not a ton of money, and they've been able to shift the way they do their instruction. They don't have a wealth of resources. Their classrooms are not real technology-rich environments. They have expanded the amount of technology that's in their classroom and done so very thoughtfully. And they also know what they want to add should funds come their way in the future. We didn't purposefully give them a whole lot of money to support technology integration because we wanted to take it to the district next to them and say, this is what you can do. And if it were contingent upon us giving them $50,000 to get some technology in the classroom, we couldn't do that. Wouldn't be sustainable for us. So they've been creative in the ways that they've obtained technology. One of the schools has a connection with a corporation, and they donate all their old laptops to that school. And so they've actually given laptops to families, to students, and to other schools involved in this pilot project. They also, there's so much stuff out there that's free that they've taken advantage of that as well. So there's a lot that they're doing that they weren't doing 2 or 3 years ago with technology, but in speaking with them, they view this as a pedagogical framework and not a technology framework. So with that, I am done. Thank you.